person is a winged one, and then you have the crown. Royal worth. You see the yogin is doing what we call full lotus. So the philosophy of complementary opposites and the union of the higher and lower self, Sema Yoga. Sematawi, the union of two lands, union of Heru and Set. Now, in Asante, where he talked about Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, right? This symbolically was not only uniting the two geographical lands, but also the higher and lower self in the human. Now, here you have Heru, Horus, and here you have Set. Now, since the divinity can be expressed through animals, the interesting thing symbolically here, okay, here you have Heru, who is the hero. This is where we get hero. And he is a what? Hawk, falcon, actually. So what is Set?
Jackal.
Looks like a jackal, but no. Close, though. Actually, not close. It's not a jackal.
It's an animal, though.
Looks like an animal, yes. Set is an imaginary creature. I mean, it looked kind of like an aardvark, but
That's what my...
yeah, it's not really. It's not an aardvark. So here's what's happening. This is the esophagus. This is the lungs. One is pulling on a papyrus. The other is pulling on a lotus. They're harnessing the breath. Okay, the image. Another rendition of that figure there. Reuniting Heru and Set. The divinities representing virtue, Heru, and vice, Set, actually make peace, and in so doing foment a sema, or a union. They tie the lotus and papyrus plants, Upper Egypt, Lower Egypt, higher and lower self. In the same manner, the aspirant who wants to overcome the vices needs to engender a movement towards virtue. This allows the personality to be purified and the lower nature is subdued, and then the true essential being, Heru, emerges shining brightly to illuminate the individual and all who come in contact with him or her. So to foment this union, you yoke the breath. So another way of showing this is that here you have Heru, who has mastered the breath, and then Set is behind him. Well, the reason I'm pointing this out is that Set is a personification of evil or vice. Uncontrolled breath, if you will. Yeshua was an adept of the Natarian school, even though we think of him as being Jewish. Technically he wasn't, but I will get into that when we get into that time period. Who does Yeshua consider evil? The embodiment of evil. Come on, this is easy, right?
Lucifer?
And what's another name for Lucifer?
The devil.
The devil. What else? Another name for him?
Satan.
Satan. Okay? Now, anybody Jewish here? Okay. Well, you may not know this, but in his time, Yeshua's time, and today, the people we call the Jews did not believe in a hell and did not believe in a devil. Did not and do not. So who then is this Satan? In Aramaic, Satana literally means adversary. That which distracts us. And it's not outside of you. Because remember, he doesn't believe in a hell or a devil. Satana means adversary, that which distracts us. It actually means your own personal ego. That's what Sed is, internally. Sed is subdued by control of the breath. That's what the symbolism is. Okay? Heru emerges victorious through control of the breath, yoking the breath. Breath in Aramaic, Holy Spirit. How do you know love your enemy? In Aramaic, it means controlling your breath. Okay? When Egypt falls, because eventually it does, the technology, the spiritual technology is basically being spread among the people that used to be subject. Right? Yeshua is basically saying, well, I'm referencing Mosaic law. Where did Moses get his law? All right, so Satana. And we'll get into that when we get into that time period, but we're way before that right now. Satana. So Satana becomes Satan. And then again, but then he gets turned into an evil archangel, and you get the whole Lucifer thing, and yeah. We'll explore that more later. So, integral spirituality. So, the four main disciplines of Shedi: devotion, meditation, which includes yoga, exercise, wisdom, and selfless service. Devotion, meditation, wisdom, and selfless service. Process of personality integration. Understanding leads to peace, love, contentment, fulfillment. So it's not so much that they're worshiping all these different creatures and gods and goddesses. All the gods and goddesses are basically understood to be different manifestations of the same one being. Emotion, reason, action, will. So emotion, devotional love; reason, wisdom; action, righteousness and virtue; and will, focusing your will through meditation. And the yogic exercises. So integral spirituality. So discipline of ritual movements through hekau, magic, so to speak, and martial arts, and semapaut. So for example, in this depiction of martial arts, very similar to what we see in the Asian martial arts, karate and kung fu. same ideas. With weapons, or karate, empty hand is what karate means. Okay, where you're basically moving to reenact the motions and attitudes of the divinity. Whoever has eaten the knowledge of every god, their existence is for all eternity and everlasting in their spirit body. What they willeth, they doeth. So the different phases in the practice of the Egyptian workout, there's actually whole books on Egyptian yoga. Postures may be practiced with a lower or higher number of repetitions in order to engender a more basic or intense workout. Program may be practiced in such a way that the mythic teachings are imparted throughout so that the practitioners gain an understanding of the psycho-spiritual principles to be cultivated. Program may be practiced as a meditative session by reducing the number of repetitions and holding the postures for a longer period of time while being led through guided imagery into a silent reflection on each posture. And a meditative form, no guided imagery instruction given by the leader except the name of the posture. The skilled practitioners move from one posture to another in a flowing and balanced manner, thereby developing the inner spontaneous movement of the Netiru cosmic consciousness and intuitional harmonizing of the individual within the cosmic. So, for example, this is Nut. Nut is a sky goddess, and it's also known in India as the wheel pose. This is a plow pose, full lotus, headstand. This is a position of Isis. Oh, this is Nut, the sky goddess. So, for example, in Indian styles of yoga where they talk about sun salutation, in Kemet there it's referred to as Ra's journey, Ra being the sun god. So the beginning, before creation, what in India they call corpse pose, caressed, mummy pose. And then journey of Ra pose. So journey of Ra's journey through the sky is the standing work, and then the floor work is when Ra dies and travels through the underworld and then rises again reborn. Okay, so you emulate the action of the netters, parts of creator and creation. Ra travels through the sky, dies, and travels through the underworld, standing versus floor exercises. Scorpion pose, crocodile pose, cobra pose, sphinx pose, Horus pose and variations, Nut pose, Mat pose, Aset, that is Isis, Isis wing pose, Isis Aset, Aset sitting pose. All right, so this isn't just, going to church. This is inner practice. All right, so the question of how do you reinforce the teachings of Mat on a daily basis and throughout the people. So this isn't just the priest practicing this. This is being taught to the common people as well. Because it doesn't necessarily require being able to read hieroglyphics. All you need is the story. this is from the Book of Egyptian Yoga. We have live models. This is another one of this particular person's book, The Mystical Journey from Jesus to Christ. What is now, a quote by St. Augustine, what is now called the Christian religion has existed among the ancient and was not absent from the beginning of the human race till Christ came in flesh, in which time the true religion, which is already in existence, began to be called Christian. So let's talk about the alphabet. As Asante talks about that one of the characteristics of civilization is writing, and writing is thought. So you have, basically this is the origins of the Semitic script. So what we're writing in when we go A, B, C, D, to Z, right, is the Latin alphabet. And the reason it's the Latin alphabet is because this is the alphabet of the Romans. So for example, so you hear the Roman alphabet, A through M. So you have on the chart Kemetic, then Semitic, Phoenician, Greek, and then the Roman. So it's called alphabet because of the first two characters in Greek, alpha and beta, alphabet. So you can see the evolution and the corresponding terms. So what this is basically the Demotic script. So remember, hieroglyphics had tens of thousands of characters, and that was only for the scribes and royalty and the priests. The common people had the Demotic script. So instead of thousands to learn, they had 26. The letter V became U in 500. There are two V's, was also written as double U and became W around 1000. J was the last letter added, evolving from I around 1600. So the reason I put this in, so I like to dissect historical fiction promoted in movies. Not that I particularly liked, I particularly dislike Mel Gibson, but the movie The Passion of the Christ, where he purports to use Aramaic as part of the dialogue. One of the things that he put in there was a J. Yeah, I don't know if you watched the crucifixion scene. I just kind of watch it to see the what's clearly propaganda, and basically he had Jesus. Well, there was no J in the Roman alphabet at the time, so that would be a lie. So usually what you see in a Roman-style crucifix, and it's a Roman-style crucifix because the Roman-style crucifix was not the original cross of Christianity. It was the Ankh that was the original cross of Christianity, according to the dictionary. The Ankh explicitly refers to and means eternal life. Roman cross is a this KRS-One referred to basically wearing a Roman cross is like wearing a electric chair. It was a torture and capital punishment device. The African forms of Christianity don't use the Roman cross. They use either the Ankh or they use the Ethiopian cross, which is So I'll actually show you that when we get to the Christian era, but it looks like Ethiopian crosses look like this. Make no reference to the Roman one. All right, so INRI, Yeshua Nazarete Rexius Israel. Okay, no J, no, not Jesus of Nazareth, King of Israel. Yeshua Nazarete Rexius Israel. That's what that means. So, imagine African life along the Nile 5,500 years ago, as depicted by the paintings of Thebes and modern-day Luxor. This is a warm society of astronomers, mathematicians, chemists, architects, doctors, musicians, and dancers. Close to nature, collectivist, free from want, society without prisons, because you got capital punishment, capable of fulfilling the material, spiritual, and creative needs of its people. Paintings depicting gardens with trees and multicolored flowers, fish ponds, birds, lotus blossoms. In that setting, schools, homework of school children is being corrected, artists are at work, magistrates are at their benches, a girl pauses while gleaning grain, and someone's hair is being braided outdoors in the meadow. A goldsmith puts finishing touches on a jewelry piece, a gardener is planting, and craftsmen are making furniture. Men and women celebrate around a banquet table, entertained by musicians and dancers. Different view of that. So, Kemetic, Semitic, Phoenician, Greek, Roman. Let's see here. Right. It's blank. So to bring this, to bring this to today, one of the people that Asante references is Maulana Ron Karenga, who, in addition to creating the concept and the African-American holiday Kwanzaa is part of a larger construct called Kawaida. So I put this together in a construct called the strings of the Kora. And there are 21 elements of Kawaida, and so the Kora, which is a species of African harp, many of them played around Egypt. It is the instrument of the griot, which is a combination storyteller, poet, diplomat, and healer. So 7 days of Kwanzaa, which is what most people know of Kawaida, but it's also 7 products of culture and 7 levels of organization. The Nguzu Saba, 7 principles of blackness, from the Kiswahili. Starting with the first day, unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith in order. Umoja, which is Kiswahili for unity or peace. Kujichagulia, self-determination. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujama, cooperative economics. Nia, purpose. Kuumba, creativity. And Imani, faith. Seven levels of social interaction and 7 products of culture. So the individual, informal group, organization, institution, community, society, and globe. And the 7 products of culture: spirituality and religion, politics, creative production, arts and sciences, economics, social organization, history, and psychology. So put together in a single graphic. what I call the strings of the Koras, Karenga's Kawa Ida. So you have Shiva, who is dancing on, who is basically creating the world and destroying the world. He is standing on tradition, which comes out of innovation. And basically trying to distill, what Karenga was attempting to do is trying to distill broad spectrum African culture into something that could be more usable, more user-friendly, unless you were going to actually go and do the study yourself, which he also encouraged. I like to teach it as a problem-solving mode, which again requires that you know most of the elements and begin to practice them beyond just concept. So, for example, the kora is described as a species of a harp. It has 21 strings, which can be tuned in a major triad, but when you play, you actually do it in a diatonic scale that is 7 tones. So the symbolism is there are 3 sets of 7 strings, each representing the past, present, and future. And when you play a kora, all the like-tuned strings vibrate with each other. So in this way, different themes in Kawa Ida repeat and find similarity and resonance. So for example, pick a social problem. Any social problem that's persistent. Depression as a social problem?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't think that's an individual problem?
It's kind of social now.
Kind of social? So why are people depressed?
Society as a whole is directing people to focus on their depression.
Okay. I'll go with that. Depression. All right. So let's say that so depression. So you said that's a social problem. Is that emotional or economic? We do talk about we're in a recession, not a depression, or we're coming out of recession. The worst economic slump since the Great Depression, right? So depression could be economic. Right?
Yeah, it's both.
So, right, it's both. So, as an example then, is depression an individual problem or a social problem? Could be both. How do you affect both? So if it's an individual problem, and that what does the study of depression fall under? What science?
Psychology.
Psychology. Okay. So whose version of psychology?
Exactly.
Okay. Psychology literally means study of the soul in Greek, as they learned it from the Egyptians. Okay, you just saw a whole thing about Natarianism. Okay, so if we basically use a Natarian's view of how you deal with depression, you need to exercise. You need to focus your mind. You need to watch your diet, because that's one of the things I didn't talk about in there. Okay, so right diet, right thought, breathing correctly, exercising correctly, helps your depression, right? Which is one of the things that we're saying today, right?
It
It could be tied into spirituality, because literally, if it means a study of the soul, in English, we basically made that a province of religion or spirituality. Okay? In Kemet, the state religion was not so much just worshipped in temples, it was practiced every day in the street. How you treated people in your everyday interaction. Okay? The cure to a condition and the health of the nation is in you. You're a part of it. What is your place? Okay? You're depressed. Why are you depressed? Maybe you're supposed to be depressed for a reason. I mean, if you lose somebody that's close to you through grief, you're supposed to be depressed. Though we often will say, oh, well, they've gone home. That person who's died has gone home. So we should be celebrating. Okay, well, both things happen. You're personally sad, but you're glad for them because they've graduated, so to speak. Lots of different ways of looking at that. So a multiplicity of views. All right, so what if it's an economic depression affecting a society, or let alone a globe or a community? So what is an economy?
Exchange of goods and services.
Or exchange of things that are valuable. Goods and services are one thing that's valuable, but what else is valuable?